Welcome to Rising Tide Startups, where today's most exciting startup founders share their stories and strategies. They also deliver tangible lessons learned along the way that you can apply to your own startup. Each episode is a true masterclass. Make sure you take notes. Take it away, Kevin.
This is Kevin Pruitt with another episode of Rising Tide Startups, and my special guest this morning is Sean Castrina. Sean, thanks for joining us on Rising Tide.
Great to be on the podcast.
So every time you move your head, I try to read the sign behind you, the 10-minute entrepreneur. I am anxious to get into that, but before we do, let's talk a little bit about who Sean Castrina is.
Yeah, obviously I'm the host of the 10-minute entrepreneur podcast. I've written 4 business books, founded the Weekend MBA, and started probably more than 20. Well, I know I've started more than 20 companies, so I understand the startup space pretty well.
And a little bit about just personal, like where do you live?
Yeah, I live in Charlottesville for all you stalkers, which is near UVA. 2 kids, married, all the good stuff there. So now I live in a great area. It was voted one of the top 20 places in America it was the number 1 place in America to live 2 out of 3 years, like 22 years ago. So I thought it'd be a great place to move and start a business, and it worked out well.
And here you are. Well, I'm about 48 minutes away from you. I'm sitting in the west end of Richmond, Virginia, as we chat.
Okay, so, like Short Pump.
Yeah, I'm in Short Pump. Exactly. That's exactly where I am. So, man, it's good to have you on the podcast. So I don't even know where to begin. I mean, you said I've started 20 businesses. So can you give us kind of a quick journey through the entrepreneurial serpentine that you've experienced over the last few years?
Yeah. So I went, I figured I'd go to college, get a grad degree, work my way up, be a CEO of a company. My brain kind of works that way. Was a Division I athlete, so it's kind of like seek, destroy, seek, destroy, seek, destroy. So I never had thought about starting a business. Never even crossed my mind. I figured I have a couple things going on, maybe speaking engagements, things of that nature, maybe investments on the side, real estate, but never thought about entrepreneurship. And then there was a change in leadership where I was working. And if you ever hear these words, unless you're in a car, you don't want to ever hear this, Sean, we're going in a different direction. And when I heard those words, I knew that I was not a part of that. They were bringing in a whole new team. And so, when that happened, I kind of knew I would never work for anybody long-term again. I'll do something in the transition. And I recommend it to everybody. What ends up happening sometimes is we lose our job or something takes place that's fairly dramatic, and we somehow think this is a great time to start a business. And I would argue it's the worst time to start a business. You're wounded.
Yeah.
Stressed out financially. I always say, get a job, then start a business. You can do 2 things at one time. Segment your days, whether you do stuff in the morning before you go to work and when you get home from work. You could do stuff on the weekend. There's 168 hours in a week. You can get quite a bit accomplished. So, that's what I did. And I sold life insurance for a year, which was actually incredible money. And we had Monday staff meetings. And this first time I've ever been around like really expensive cars, like Mercedes, BMWs, Lexuses. It was just like, a car lot of really nice cars. And then there was mine. And I'm there, and this is almost 30 years ago. I'm like, it would be so cool if I could get my car cleaned in this parking lot while I'm sitting in this meeting, wasting these 2 hours. Now there's a car wash, every 800 feet, but at the time there wasn't. And it's not like I like cleaning cars or have any interest in anything like that, but I was just kind of laying it out. Okay, we would need a vehicle, we'd need a big water tank, we'd need like a power washer. I just went through there's only like 5 things we needed.
Yeah.
And I started Wax Master Mobile Detailing. And a couple key points that, number one, it's still in business. I sold it. They cleaned 2 of my cars in the last 2 months, and they typically clean them about 3 times a year. But it was a great name. You knew exactly what we did from day one. Wax Master Mobile Detailing. People make names so confusing. They feel like this is going to be their creative thing. Unless it's a domain within the internet space where you can go with the Google, the Bing, and stuff like that. But outside of that, you typically, don't try to reinvent the wheel. Don't get so cute.
Be clear. Yeah.
Be very clear. They should know exactly what you do, because then you have to market twice. You got to market you're doing your name, and then you got to explain your name and then what you're doing. If your name says what you do, you've made a little bit of your marketing easier. Second thing is, our tagline was America's choice in mobile detailing. Again, reiterating what we do, but taking the boldest position possible. And I always say, if nobody's claimed it, claim it.
Yep.
You can grow into that, that brand. And it was an incredible business. I made $30,000 passive that year by just setting up somebody to answer the phone. And we had 4 different pricings: inside, outside, van, car, something like that. Every Friday, the gentleman who cleaned the cars would bring me the checks. I'd write him a check for 50% back and rinse, repeat. And that has kind of been my, model for the last, 30 years. Service companies. I like businesses that involve human beings. I don't want to compete with software. I don't want to compete with Amazon. I don't want to compete with AI. The
Right.
human being is by far the most amazing thing on the planet. I read that like AI at its greatest level is 1% of an ant, has the intelligence of 1% of an ant.
Hmm.
So the human being is a fairly extraordinary,
We're pretty complex.
we are. We're pretty in the ability to think, adapt, things of that nature. I mean, we got some pretty neat, unique things going on. So so I've been starting service companies since then, and it's done very, very well for me. And, among other types of businesses, but I find that service companies are definitely my strike zone.
But primarily B2C.
No, all business to customers. Yeah, not B2B.
Yeah.
I want the customer to be able to say yes today and write a check today. That's my qualifications. The problem with commercial work is that commercial, it's bid related.
Right.
You never get paid at the time of service.
Race to the bottom of price.
Yeah. So there's so many things that I don't like about it. Again, I want somebody to be able to say, yes, I want to hire you today. I can pay you today. If you can't do that, I'm not interested in rental properties. I'm not interested in realtors. I'm not interested. Homeowner that can say yes today and write me a check today.
That is as clear an explanation of like your entrepreneurial DNA as I've probably heard in 250 episodes.
Yeah.
Because I want B2C. I want, say yes today, pay today. I mean,
that's it.
We
have no outstanding invoices. We have no outstanding invoices in our company. When we're, do $10 million in service, one of the best service companies, everybody will pay the day or pay the next day.
Yeah.
But there is no, there's no, we're going to wire it to you. We're going to do this.
Net 30 days on the invoice.
None of that. People say, well, don't you invoice? I go, can you do an invoice when you go buy gas or groceries?
Yeah. So does that kind of limit the price point too? I mean, you're looking at services that are $50, $100 total.
No, I mean, my typical service personally that I oversee is like 25,000 to 100, 120, 200,000. I mean, it'll be over draws, but they're writing us checks,
Right.
and even if it's over draws, it's 5 checks. It's, they're writing a $25,000 start check. They're writing a 15% deposit check and things of that nature. But if you train your clients well, and my clients know, it's funny, I'll go look at a job and what I'm speaking of right now, and I own I think I own the biggest digital marketing company in Virginia, but what I'm specifically speaking of, also I own a very high remodeling company, that multi-million-dollar and very bougie type of thing. We have designer on staff and kitchen designers, and we do some pretty amazing
Great
stuff.
place to have one of those, by the way.
Oh, it is. Charlottesville's incredible. We literally print money. I joke that we take money out in duffel bags. But with that being, with that being said, my customers always joke. They go, Sean, they always joke about getting their elbow ready, because they go, with you, Sean, all we got to do is say what we want and write a check. I go, I've got you trained well. Yeah, I joke that I don't chase checks.
Did I hear somewhere, maybe it was another episode that I might have been listening to, that you had done that you try to start a new business every year?
Yeah, I try to start a new profit stream within one of my companies, or something new within every year. And I view that as something worth $250,000 or more. So this isn't a $50,000 hobby or anything like that. And that's why we've added so many divisions within my home service company. And that's why we're getting ready to franchise our digital marketing company. Yeah, I just think, there's 12 months in a year. I don't think it's a bad idea to kind of like every year go, okay, where can we grow? Where's there an opportunity for scaling? And what we tend to do is hold on to the business we hold on to it like oxygen. It's almost like the person holding that death grip on the steering wheel. Typically what I find the life cycle of a startup and a young entrepreneur is, they start the business, and then at some point they replace their income as an employee. And that's like the holy grail.
Yeah.
They got a little bit of freedom, and they're making what they made. And if they're making even a little bit more, oh, that is great. But then they stop there, and then it's a death grip hold on for the duration of their lifetime.
Mm.
And I just think you got to constantly be growing,
Yeah.
because things that work today may not work 5 years from now. What may be your biggest profit stream right now, 5 years from now, may not even exist.
Have you built I mean, it sounds like you got so much going on, and there's only one of you. And I mean, I don't know how
Yeah.
you multiply yourself or leverage yourself, but
Partners. I
is
partner in
there
all my businesses.
so if you have listeners that say, okay, hey, I would like to kind of replicate this model. So do you have courses? Do you have, I mean, I know you've written books about that, but what's kind of the ongoing community that you've built around this?
Yeah, I typically, I mean, people reach out to me and I'll coach them privately. And, obviously it's not inexpensive, but I've mastered marketing. I understand marketing really well. And partnering is what I've done in all my businesses, right down to the wax master. What I do is my philosophy is this: who is the one person in the equation that you're missing, that if you had that, you could either start the business and or scale the business. There's no one person who can typically do both, because you said you're physically limited. I'm limited in time right now. That would be, there's a finite amount of time that I have right now. There's a certain amount of bandwidth that I can put my focus on. So I'll get a business off the ground with someone who's an expert in whatever we're going to do.
Yeah.
And they're going to take over the day-to-day, like the digital marketing. I brought in a guy who'd worked with Fortune 100 companies, and we started a digital marketing company. And, it's done incredible. And I have 6 partners in my home remodeling company and things like that. My partner in my real estate company. So I always partner. That is like my go-to right from the beginning. Who is the one person? Like, if I have them and I can mentor them, train them in business, because typically they're coming from an employee situation. And so I have to spend about 2 to 3 years, changing kind of their mindset, as well as, how they handle customers. And you got to, typically got to be a little bit tougher if you're at the top of the food chain. So they generally somebody like that, they don't know how to fire somebody. They drag it out.
Yeah.
And I always say to, like, James will come to me, he goes, oh, I was thinking about, runs my digital marketing company. He's a really nice guy. He'll go, wow, I'm going to give him another chance. I go, it's not going to work. I said, you can do I'm not going to tell you to fire anybody, but a month from now, I promise you, you'll wish you would have fired him today.
Yeah.
He came back 2 weeks later and goes, you're right, I fired him today. I go, once you know you should fire him, just cut bait.
Yep. That is, I think that is so true. And I mean, of the 1,000 stories of what you just described, hey, they're not going to change. The leopard doesn't change his spots type thing. There may be an outlier. There may be one person that kind of has that aha moment and wakes up in the midst of this and says, hey, I got to do something different. But for the most part, I think you're exactly right. It is this whole idea of, cutting bait and cutting it pretty quickly.
Well, exactly. Once and my philosophy also as well is generally, you got a good employee in the first 30 days. In the first 30 days, you got a pretty good idea of what you got. Now they can improve and get better, but you kind of know they're reliable. They have the capacity. They're smart. You kind of get a good idea, and you also know if they're not. And I just find that just when it comes to hiring and firing, just get it. You're always wanting to improve your team and cut them loose when you know that they're no longer an asset to the company. Never drag that out at all. And I'm that way with a startup too. I apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's all right. Go ahead.
I feel that way when I start a company as well. If you're not making money in 90 days in a general startup, okay, barring you had venture capital given to you, the 1 in 10,000, but if you're not making money, you better make a massive pivot or close the doors.
Yeah. Now, is that profitable or is that just revenue?
I mean, you got to make revenue, but I think at some point, I think we dragged this dog and pony show out too long. And the reason why we do that is because we have access to money too easy right now. Home equity line.
Yep.
I've never used like stuff like that to start a business. I go into it with a finite amount of money that I'm willing to, just like if I was at a blackjack table.
Okay. That's a good analogy.
I got this much money. I don't buy back in chips. If I lost this, it's because I'm having a bad day. And I don't really gamble, but it makes the story good. But yeah, you can't just keep throwing money on a bad idea. You're better off to pivot on it.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I love the way you kind of frame that, and this whole idea of, and I want to ask you about that in just a minute about, passion versus, just common
Yeah.
sense. But the idea, what I was going to ask you earlier is that when you onboard employees, is there like a 30-day, probationary period because you have kind of refined this 30 days?
I
Or?
in my mind, what I basically tell a person is I put the expectations out very clear.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is kind of what we want. And you try to do I like to do my due diligence on the front end. I don't enjoy firing anybody. I mean, it's not like I'm like, whatever. I don't like that, but I share with my partners, like, this is what you're looking for in a hire. This is what a bad hire looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you can tell early on. I'll give you one piece of advice. Never stick with people that cannot manage themselves. They're either late, they got substance abuse issues, that undisciplined, whatever it is. There's so many things. If somebody cannot manage themselves, you cannot manage them.
Mm.
I've had very talented people that could not manage themselves, and thus I could not manage them. So sometimes, you cut bait because you realize they have habits that are very destructive, and you don't know that in the interview process. So that may come out really fast. And when that does, we don't run rehab centers.
Right.
It's time to cut bait. And I tell people, I go, if you were 1 year past whatever issue you had, I'd give you a chance. I said, but I'm not going to walk you through whatever you've got ahead of you. I go, we got too many high-end customers,
Mm-hmm.
too many moving pieces to be babysitting you right now.
Yeah. Have you found it to be true kind of emotionally as well? I mean, if you've had people that had, that kind of struggle with getting their head around the job, or they're always so busy or whatever.
Yeah. I am void of emotion when it comes to employees on purpose. Because they'll use it against you. What they end up doing is, like, a week later, Johnny, their kid, because they already shared with you, they've been having problems. Johnny's been, skipping school or whatever. I don't care. Don't take it personal. I don't care. You need to, I'm happy to maybe adjust your work schedule. Maybe you get off a little bit earlier. I mean, I'm willing to do things like that, but I don't want any of the family dramatic, because you're going to use that against me every time I try to hold you accountable to what I expected of you.
Yeah.
So I don't buy into that, everybody's a kumbaya at work. No, my employees like me because I can create a paycheck for them. If I could not create a paycheck, they wouldn't be there. I mean, they're all there for a reason. We all know why we come in every day. So playing that game, doesn't make sense to me. They respect me because I know how to scale companies, grow them. Everything's first class. Their paychecks don't bounce. We never run out of work. That's my responsibility. What's going on in their house is not my responsibility.
But it sounds like to me, though, you've created a culture at work that they can trust too, though, that they,
there's no nonsense.
There's no drama. There's no putting up with a bad employee to make the good employees think, hey, I'm kicking my butt over here, and you're watching this guy.
Exactly.
Do nothing,
just, when you have a bad employee, somebody else is picking up the slack.
Yeah.
That's what people don't understand. Somebody else is picking up the slack. And that, to me, it's just not helpful. I want everybody rowing in the right direction. And my fault, well, in just hiring in general, what I'm looking for is somebody who has exceptional talent. I don't hire any 7s or below. A 7, if you think a person's a 7, they're probably a 5. 5, unless they're opening the doors or cleaning dishes, are not going to move the needle in your business.
Yeah.
5s do not move the needle. There's certain positions where you can get away with it, but in my businesses, you can't. Okay. So I'm looking for talent, smart. You can't fix stupid. You cannot fix stupid. Smart person can answer a customer's question well. They can navigate an issue. They can do stuff on their feet. They just figure things out. Smart and great capacity. I want a person who can do 2 jobs.
But you're also going to reward that.
I pay a ridiculous. I know my employees are the best paid employees in the United States of America for what they're doing.
Yeah. And you keep good talent, though, because of that, because of the culture and because of the reward, the recompense, side of things.
Exceptionally well taken care of. Exceptionally well taken care of. And I'm creative in that. Like, if an employee tells me, for example, my son plays baseball and he's a pitcher. Okay. And he's going to pitch like 1 time a week for the next 3 months. I'd redo their entire schedule so they could go to that game.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't mind being flexible. But don't play a game with me. Just kind of tell me what's going on.
Right.
Whatever it is.
Show me that I can trust you.
Exactly. Tell me what your
beforehand.
strategy is.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell me what your strategy is to make up for it, or whatever it is. Maybe we just lower your pay for a season, or for a certain amount of time during the year. I don't care. We can figure it out, but there has to be communication there.
So I was listening to another chat you had done, and we've had so many people interviewed on the show talking about, man, I've got to be passionate about what I do. It is just the driver. It's the thing that gets me out of bed in the morning. And you were like the counterpoint to that,
Completely
and saying,
opposite.
as you're telling the
Yeah.
story about the auto detailing thing, I'm thinking there was no way he's sitting in that boardroom, that conference room going, I am so passionate about cleaning cars.
I've never cleaned a car before then. I've never cleaned a car after then. I couldn't tell you the difference between two screwdrivers, yet I own a construction company, remodeling company. I want to find something that there's a massive demand in the marketplace. I'm passionate about business. I'm passionate about marketing. I love creating the game that works. I like creating all the little pieces, the function. I love the setting up, the attracting customers, selling customers, the fulfillment. I love that.
Yeah.
The necessary business. I'm passionate about tennis and golf, and I don't know how to make money with either of those. So,
Hey, you say that now.
yeah.
2024, Sean
Yeah.
may have a golf company
Yeah, but
or
you
a
get
tennis
the
company.
general idea. The example is this. I'll give you close up with one example in that dealing with that question. I started a handyman company 22 years ago, and we actually had a retail space because it was just affordable. And so we had a retail space. And to the left of me was a guy selling trains, everything you can for like trains, the little
Mhm.
model trains and all
Yep.
that. I mean, he wore the conductor's outfit, the hat. I mean, the whole role. Okay. The other side of me was a lady doing scrapbooking. You couldn't have been more passionate. These two people were so passionate. These two people were out of business in 6 months. I'm back. I'm 22 years later because I had a durable service that people needed. And the problem is we get passionate about something, and we may live in an area where there's not enough of us
Mhm.
to make it a go at it. Now,
Yep.
if you can find something that you're passionate about and there's a nice market for it, hey, I'm like, have at it. I don't think you should do something you don't like doing,
Right.
but I like the business part of it. What
Yeah.
we're actually doing is kind of irrelevant to me. If my customers have a demand for it and we can fulfill it at a high level and there's nice margins, we'll clean toilets if I can get enough demand for it.
Well, you won't, but you'll
Yeah,
hire
somebody
toward
will.
that.
I'll
Yeah, that's
find
right.
25 people that love cleaning toilets. Somebody's got to do it. I think that passion is an entrepreneur's mistress. It gives
Mm.
us a reason to drag a business along longer than we should. We look at it through the wrong lens.
Mhm.
It's kind of like how we would look at our children. We give, typically in a healthy situation, you give them the benefit of the doubt on nearly everything. And because you're always waiting for the story to turn, it's
Yeah.
always going to get better. I don't think of that like a business. I don't have that level of grace.
It's never, we don't scrutinize to the level that we would things we weren't passionate about.
Exactly. So we
Yeah.
hold on to something longer than we should instead of looking at it from just the pure numbers. This is
Yeah.
not making money. We do not have enough foot traffic, or we don't have enough people interested in it. Again, I like tennis. I love tennis and golf in Charlotte. So I haven't figured out, how to make it, you know, a business, but it's made me enough money where I can play any golf course in the world.
So I love the idea of this constant churn, every year we're thinking of something new or whatever. What do you have what's the Post-it note process that you go through that when you're evaluating or even finding business opportunities?
Well, number one is I never stop looking. So I'm
Mhm.
looking 365 days. What I do is I look at what I have, and a couple of the things that I look at, I go, where within what I already own, what would my target customer want that I'm currently not providing? Like,
Like
just look
add-on
at,
services?
yes,
Yeah,
whatever it is,
right.
just kind of look across the board. What is it that we have the capacity to do that our customers would trust us to do? And maybe
Mm.
you expand in there. Where would there be synergy?
Yeah.
When I did the digital marketing company, it was completely the opposite of what I had going on, but we needed digital marketing to promote our business. Our competitors were beating us up in digital marketing.
Mhm.
So I knew we had to, why not have our own digital marketing company? And now it's not a fair fight. So I look for synergy. I look for complementary things within the space that we're in. I listen to what our customers are asking for. I mean, you can find it if you're looking, you will find it.
Yeah.
Okay, it's out there. But what ends up, again, we end up holding the steering wheel for dear life. We don't look for anything else, and we hope it stays forever. And I'm just always, always I was looking. I mean, it's great. This is just how my brain works. Just perfect example. So I had two men in a truck come to my house yesterday, and they were moving some stuff because I was doing a furnished apartment somewhere. And I kind of looked at them, and I'm like, okay, two men in a truck. This is a really good business because I look at what I paid them for the hour. So this is a great business model. It's a franchise.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually had three people working. And he goes, yeah, we never have three people. I said, yeah, see, if I was going to start your business, it would be three dudes and a big truck. And they were like, that's a great name. I go, yeah, because I'm going to go I'm going to one over each of the things that you have. You have two men in a truck. I got three dudes, because you just picture somebody a lot stronger and bigger, and a big truck. I can carry a lot more stuff in one load. I mean, like, so to me, like my brain was processing maybe starting a moving company. I said, I'm like an addict. There's nothing sexy about that, but I ran the numbers. I paid them $250 an hour. There was three people there. Nobody was making more than $25 an hour. If I was betting my life, it was probably a 15, a 20, and a 25.
Mm.
I'm running the math. So, okay, golly, that's a pretty nice, let's say $190 spread or something like that. So the person's only almost making $2,000 a day. Let's say they're making $1,500 a day clean. Okay, 5 days in a week, that's 7,500. Saturdays are probably a bigger day. That's probably closer to 9,000. 9,000 times 50, it's a 450,000, 50,000 in expenses. And I can run the math. Somebody's walking away with 300 clean.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not sexy. That's not sexy, but I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. The idea of taking something. So how do you kind of improve on that? How do you like,
no original ideas.
That's right. You deliver pizzas in 30 minutes. We're going to do it in 20.
Exactly. To me, I always say this is a good piece of marketing advice, and it may help the audience. Find the one promise that if you could deliver on it, and your competition right now can't or won't. But if you can find one promise that your target customer, if they heard about it, they would chase you down for your business. And then you build your business around that. That's what Domino's Pizza did. I mean, you look at what Walmart did. You look at what Amazon does. You look at what Nike does. We're going to put the greatest athletes in the world are going to be wearing our stuff. They started that in the 80s before anybody was talking about it. They did it with Michael Jordan. They did it with Bo Jackson, and they just kind of stuck with that story. The greatest athletes in the world wear Nike. Yep. That was the story. Okay. No matter what the marketing was, that was the one theme that everybody kind of knew what they were doing. Everybody knew when they ordered a Domino's pizza, why? You're going to get a hot pizza in under 30 minutes. Yep. That was a bold branding position at the time.
Or it's free. Yeah.
Yeah. Or it's free. Mm-hmm. So whatever it is, Zappos has, returns for 365 days. Mm-hmm. So what promise could you make and deliver on that your competition isn't, that if your target customer heard about it, they would just, they would chase you down. I mean, I want it to be that good. They would chase you down for your business. That's the kind of company you want to build. And if you do that, money will take care of itself.
And you've answered the question that I was just going to ask you, that you probably just answered it right then, but I want to give you space in case you want to expound on some things. But we're kind of come to the end of our chat here today. This whole idea of, you've had so much experience in kind of the leadership, CEO, founder, startup space. For those of us that are much further behind you in the journey, what's just really one or two really sage, points, real concise, one-liners that you say, hey, this will move the needle if you get these right?
Okay. Staffing is your number one thing. Staffing will move the needle faster than anybody. If you hire monkeys, you get peanut. You know what I mean? If you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. There it is. I knew it was in my head. But you're going to grow your business in direct proportion to how good your staff is. So always be upgrading your staff. I mean, have a super top-notch staff. Number two is that partnering 50% of a lot is better than 100% of a little. Why does Warren Buffett have a partner? Okay, let's go through all the people. Elon Musk, partnership with Tesla, partnership with PayPal, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs. Why are the smartest people on the planet, 80% of them have partnerships in their businesses? So I think partnering allows you to create momentum and scale so much faster. And then the marketing, you've got, the biggest problem with small businesses, they take their foot off the gas on marketing. Never take your foot off the gas in marketing. Always be always be collecting customers, always be, finding new ways to attract customers. When you find something that works, that's great. Find a second thing that works. You can, I look at that as almost another business. Example, let's just real quickly give you another quick marketing tool. Let's say that for whatever reason, you found a digital space that created this amount of customers. And so you're making this amount of money on it. Well, technically, if you could find another source that could duplicate it, you just doubled your business.
Yeah. No doubt.
So you can grow your business, not necessarily by adding more services. I've done it many years by going all in on another marketing vehicle. The goal is growth.
Yep.
My goal is $250,000 in growth. How I get it, there's a lot of ways to get it. So sometimes it's through marketing. And I think that in small business, that's the first two things we cut is we try to pay people less than what they're worth, or we hire people that are worth exactly what we're paying and they're just not that talented. So that's the big mistake we make. We don't pay anything. And number two is we cut marketing, or we try to keep marketing as low as humanly possible. They're the two biggest mistakes we make in small business space, and they are massive mistakes. They are absolutely, massive mistakes.
Well, another thing you mentioned is that, as you're doubling down on something that's working, you're actually, you've de-risked it too. I mean, it's going to work.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not patient in letting, if something's not working, I move on to something else, but I'm always looking for more ways to apply leverage in my business. If I find that if you get comfortable, generally, the next stage is that you start, money starts, teetering out. And then there's the bottom, then obviously you start going on the downside of it. So I don't ever want to think like that. I always want to have a growth mentality. I always want to have a staffing. I'm always interviewing. I'm totally staffed right now, but I still interview all the time.
Well, in your world, that's a temporary setback, or I guess that's a temporary state of affairs.
Yeah, I mean, we do pretty good. But my point is, if I interviewed somebody super talented, I'd find the money to hire them.
Yeah.
Like because I know they're going to generate talented people always pay for themselves. It's the untalented that costs you money. Yeah. The talented, gifted person, they're worth every penny you're paying them.
And more. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Man, I tell you, you warned me before I hit the record button that you said, hey, I talk fast, but it's not just quantity. I mean, it's the quality that you have built into this, 30 minutes or so that we've been chatting. And Sean, I really appreciate you just taking time today, and just, it's really good to connect on a beautiful Saturday morning in Virginia.
Yeah.
And as we wrap up today, is there any closing thought you would like to add? And then maybe just tell people where the best place to find you online, prop up your podcast.
Yeah. I mean, if you like, you can obviously tell I'm going to give you something in a quick period of time, because I don't have a great deal of patience. So the 10-Minute Entrepreneur Podcast, I think, is the best podcast on the planet for giving you a quick interview and or quick advice in under 20 minutes for sure. And then secondly, if you go to SeanCastrina.com, I have a free book you can download. It'll get you updated on the Weekend MBA. And our newsletter is really good. It gives you something that you can actually take to your business and implement. So yeah. And then I'm obviously I'm on Instagram. So any of those, SeanCastrina.com, you can find me on Instagram. And I think, that's a really good start.
Well, Sean, thank you for repping our state well this morning, as you shared such a great amount of value in a very short period of time, but and also just really kind of upholding the promise that we try to deliver at Rising Tide, and that is just helping all boats rise in a rising tide. Sean, have a great weekend.
Great. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast.
Another episode in the books. We hope you heard some great takeaways. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star review on iTunes and YouTube. As always, thanks for listening to Rising Tide.